She was 23, flat broke, and sitting in a parking lot, crying silently into the steering wheel of a used car she couldn't afford to fix. Her bank balance? $3.28. Her credit card? Maxed out. And her dreams? Fading fast. Emma used to be the girl with the big plans, the vision board, the hustle, the belief that things would work out. But life has a brutal way of testing that belief. She did everything they said she should. Go to college. Get the job. Work hard. But still, she couldn't breathe financially. Rent was late, debt collectors were calling, and every swipe of her debit card felt like a gamble. It was in that rock-bottom moment that something inside her snapped and awakened. She realized no one was coming to save her. And what happened next? That's the story I want to share with you today. Because Emma didn't just get back on her feet, she built a financial empire from the ground up. Before she turned 30, she became a self-made millionaire, not because she was lucky, but because she learned how the money game really works. And the truth is, you can do the same. So if you've ever felt stuck, behind, broke, or like time is slipping away, you're in the right place. This channel is where we break down real financial stories, lessons, and mindset shifts from people who have hit rock bottom and turned it into gold. Make sure you follow and turn on notifications, because the next story you hear might just be the one that changes yours. Her name was Emma. She wasn't always broke. In fact, growing up, she believed she'd make it. Maybe not as a millionaire, but definitely as someone who wouldn't have to look at her bank balance before ordering dinner or feel her stomach twist when the rent was due. She was smart, ambitious, had a degree in marketing, and a little sparkle in her eyes that told people, she'll go far. But life had other plans. At 27, Emma found herself sitting in the back room of a cafe in a cheap neighborhood of downtown Toronto, crying into her third failed resume printout, the paper already curling from her clammy fingers. The printer had jammed again. But that wasn't why she was crying. The real reason? She couldn't afford bus fare to get to the next job interview. And worse, she wasn't even sure it would be worth it. Her bank account? $7.38. Her credit card? Maxed out. Her Wi-Fi? Disconnected 3 days ago. And her dreams? On life support. It hadn't always been this way. Just 2 years earlier, Emma had landed a promising job at a mid-sized digital agency. She wore blazers. Had a team. Gave presentations with confidence. She made $54,000 a year, not a fortune, but enough to live in a shared condo and still afford Friday sushi. Then the world shut down. Her agency lost clients, and one rainy Thursday she was let go with a "we'll keep your resume on file" and a pat on the back. At first she thought she'd bounce back. She had savings. She had skills. She had LinkedIn. But months passed. The world changed. So did the job market. Suddenly it wasn't enough to just be good. You had to be specialized, visible, branded. Emma wasn't any of that. She started freelancing, but clients were flaky. She tried an Etsy store, but it barely covered her coffee. She joined webinars, subscribed to newsletters, watched hours of motivational videos. But none of it filled the fridge. Soon her savings were gone. Then came the credit cards. The worst part? She wasn't lazy. She worked. Constantly. 10 hours a day, sometimes more. But it was like running on a treadmill in the dark, loud, tiring, directionless. And all the while the shame grew heavier. She stopped replying to group chats. Avoided family calls. Skipped birthdays. She couldn't stand the question, "How are you doing?" Because how do you explain that your biggest decision today is whether to buy a loaf of bread or keep the lights on? By 28, Emma had moved into a tiny basement room with a leaky ceiling. Her landlord was a grumpy woman who banged on the door every first of the month, and Emma hated the smell of mold that never quite left her clothes. She had pawned her iPad. Sold 3 bags of clothes. And worst of all, she stopped dreaming. There were nights, long, suffocating nights, where she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd peaked at 25. She'd scroll through Instagram, seeing old classmates traveling, buying homes, launching businesses. Meanwhile, she couldn't even afford a dentist appointment. And then came that day, the day that broke her. It was a cold February morning. Emma had spent 2 days without eating, trying to stretch the last of her groceries. She had an interview with a startup that morning. One last chance. The kind of role she used to dream of, content lead, remote-friendly, good benefits. She put on her best outfit, ran a brush through her tangled hair, and set up in the corner of a friend's apartment to borrow their Wi-Fi. Her laptop, old, dented, and slow, kept freezing. Still, she tried to stay calm. The interview started. But as she spoke, her video glitched, her sound lagged, and then her screen went black. Her laptop had died completely. Not battery. Not overheating. Dead. The interview ended in silence. She stared at the blank screen for what felt like hours. Then she cried. Not the pretty, soft tears of a rom-com, but the kind of ugly, soul-ripping sobs that come from the center of your chest when you finally realize, "I'm not okay." That night, Emma curled up on the floor because the bed was cold and the floor felt more real. And in the quiet of her brokenness, she asked herself the question that changed everything. Is this all there is? That was the moment. The deepest pit. When there was nothing left, not pride, not certainty, not even excuses, something inside her cracked open. A small whisper, one she hadn't heard in a long time, spoke. You've tried everything except starting over. She didn't know what that meant yet. But she clung to it like a rope in the dark. And that whisper? That tiny flicker? It would become the fire that changed her life. The tension had reached its peak. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, eyes fixed on the unopened bills spread across the floor like a deck of cards. Her savings account was at $23. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her car insurance was overdue. And worst of all, her spirit was shattered. For months she had been living in survival mode, doing everything she could just to get through the week. Some days she skipped meals so her younger sister could eat. Other nights she took long walks to avoid crying in front of her mom. The job she once believed would be her big break turned into a soul-draining cycle of burnout and underpayment. And the business idea she had nurtured for years now felt like a distant fantasy. She felt like a fraud. Like she was pretending to be someone strong while inside she was barely holding on. One night, after another shift that left her physically exhausted and emotionally numb, Emma collapsed on her bedroom floor. She didn't even have the energy to make it to bed. Her body gave up before her mind did. She stared at the ceiling and whispered to no one in particular, I can't keep doing this. That was the moment everything changed. Not because someone came to save her. Not because she won the lottery. But because she made a quiet decision, this is not going to be my story. She didn't have a detailed plan. She didn't know how it would all work out. But she decided that night that she was done surviving. She was going to rebuild. The next morning, Emma woke up with swollen eyes but a strange sense of clarity. She started by doing something she hadn't done in months. She opened a notebook. Not for journaling her pain this time, but for writing down everything she did know. Her skills, her interests, what people had complimented her on. She wrote down ideas that once excited her, books she had read that sparked something in her, and the names of mentors she admired from afar. One name kept coming up, Marie Forleo. Emma remembered watching one of Marie's videos during her college years. Back then she laughed at the idea of online business. But now? Now it didn't seem so ridiculous. She binged every free resource she could find. Podcasts. YouTube. Free PDFs. She stayed up till 3 a.m. not to cry or doomscroll but to learn. She absorbed everything she could about online marketing, freelance writing, content creation, and the world of digital entrepreneurship. She realized she had a valuable skill. She could write. Not just write but connect. She could take complex ideas and simplify them. She had a voice that was raw, honest, and relatable. And for the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope. She started small. Emma pitched herself as a blog writer for a few small businesses she admired. Her first gig paid $75 for a 1,000-word article. She almost cried when she got the PayPal notification. But she didn't stop there. She reinvested that money into a copywriting course. Then she offered to rewrite email newsletters for a yoga studio in exchange for testimonials. She designed her own portfolio using free Canva templates and a free Gumroad page. And slowly, month by month, the money started to come in. Not a lot, but enough. She stopped dodging her bank app. She began checking her finances daily. She made a budget for the first time in her life. It wasn't perfect. She made mistakes. She overspent. She undercharged. But she kept going. The real breakthrough came when she created her first digital product, a simple guide on how to write powerful emails that convert. She sold it for $27. Then she bundled it with a mini course using free tools. Her first launch made $432. Not life-changing money. But it was proof. Proof that she could create something from nothing. Proof that she had value. Proof that she didn't need to wait for permission to be successful. 6 months after that night on the floor, Emma had paid off her highest interest credit card. She had $2,000 saved in an emergency fund. Her freelance writing income had replaced her 9-to-5 job. And more importantly, she was sleeping through the night. She was smiling more. She started reconnecting with friends she had pushed away during her lowest moments. And she was finally helping her mom pay rent, not out of obligation but out of joy. Emma didn't become a millionaire overnight. She didn't need to. Because she discovered something more valuable than money. She discovered her power. Her story didn't end on the floor. It started there. Emma stood at the edge of a new life. Not because someone handed it to her. But because she had fought for it. Every sleepless night. Every tear shed in silence. Every moment she questioned her worth. It all brought her here. But what exactly was here? It wasn't the multi-six-figure bank account she had finally built. It wasn't the fact that her YouTube channel was thriving. Or that companies now paid her just to speak. It wasn't even the quiet satisfaction of having bought her parents a small home they never dreamed they'd own. No, the win, what truly mattered, was something more invisible. More personal. It was peace. It was clarity. It was the knowing that she had become someone she admired. But let's back up for a moment. After Emma rebuilt her life, learning about intellectual capital, offering value freely, nurturing her social capital, building a lean but mighty team, she still felt a strange emptiness. At first she tried to ignore it. She filled her calendar. Took on new opportunities. Made new goals. But that same feeling crept in each time she hit a milestone. Then one day, while journaling, a habit she'd committed to since her lowest point, she asked herself a different kind of question. What would I do if I couldn't post about it, couldn't monetize it, and couldn't prove it to anyone? That one question cracked something wide open. So much of her life, her hustle, her reinvention, her success, had become a kind of performance. Not in a manipulative way, but in a survival way. When you're drowning and you find a boat, you don't ask questions. You cling. You climb. You steer. But now that she was floating, Emma realized she had never asked. Where am I going? Emma began slowing down. For the first time in years, she scheduled entire weeks without content. Without meetings. Without new launches. She spent afternoons reading under the sun. Sometimes with her phone off. She reconnected with her younger brother, who was now a dad. She took her mom out for lunch, just to ask about her childhood. And that's when it hit her. In chasing success, she had forgotten what that success was supposed to create. Freedom. Connection. Purpose. So she pivoted again. Not outwardly. Not with a rebrand. But inwardly. She stopped chasing. And started choosing. Emma began choosing opportunities that aligned with her values. Not her fears. If a client made her doubt her worth, she walked away. If a partnership didn't light her up, she said no. If a project drained her, she either delegated it or deleted it entirely. This was new. This was scary. But it was also powerful. She started teaching her audience. Not just how to make money, but how to keep their soul while doing it. She talked openly about burnout, emotional regulation, imposter syndrome, and the very real danger of tying your self-worth to your productivity. And you know what? Her audience grew even faster. Because people don't just want wealth. They want wisdom. They don't just want cash. They want clarity. Emma learned that money is only a tool. Sure, money had changed Emma's life. It allowed her to quit toxic environments, to invest in therapy, to buy time. But it wasn't the answer. It was the access. With it, she bought freedom. And with freedom, she discovered peace. She stopped buying things to impress people she didn't even like. She stopped working with clients who only cared about metrics. She stopped pushing when her body begged for rest. And instead, she invested in a local girls' leadership nonprofit. She took cooking classes just for fun. She created a small scholarship for other women like her. Women who had once sat on bathroom floors, sobbing into silence, wondering how they'd ever escape the life they didn't choose. If you're watching this, Emma would tell you. Don't wait until you're rich to find your values. Start with your values. And build your life around them. Not the other way around. She'd tell you. The things you think will make you happy, the house, the car, the viral posts, might just be distractions if you're not clear on who you are. She'd tell you. Learn skills. Yes. Work hard. Of course. Build assets. Absolutely. But never sacrifice your peace for progress. Emma realized that being lost wasn't a sign she was broken. It was a signal. A clue. It meant she was shedding an old identity and preparing to meet her next self. If you're feeling lost, maybe you're not failing. Maybe you're becoming. Emma now mentors other aspiring creators. But her focus isn't how to scale fast or how to monetize every platform. She teaches them how to build with intention. Her 3 pillars? Authenticity over aesthetics. Impact over impressions. Alignment over ambition. She wants people to know success is allowed to feel good. It doesn't have to burn you out. It doesn't have to demand your sanity. It doesn't have to come at the cost of your relationships or your health. Now, when Emma wakes up, she does so without anxiety in her chest. She no longer flinches when her phone pings. She doesn't dread Mondays. Her time is hers. She's not addicted to applause. She's anchored in purpose. And this is what truly mattered. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the followers. It wasn't the achievements. What mattered was learning to trust herself again. Letting go of people-pleasing. Choosing peace over proving. Healing instead of hiding. Becoming someone who didn't need external validation to know her worth. That was Emma's richest reward. And that is what she wants to pass on to you. Because the truth is, you don't have to burn out to belong. You don't have to hit rock bottom to rise. You can start small. Start messy. Start wherever you are. But just start. And start with you. If this story spoke to something deep inside you, you are not alone. Hit that follow button, so you don't miss more stories like Emma's. Real. Raw. Full of the lessons no one teaches you about money, purpose, and peace. This channel is your space for growth. For healing. For building the life you actually want. Not just the one the world told you to chase. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you're here sharing this space. I strongly believe nothing happens randomly, there's always a reason. And remember, you're not behind. You're just becoming. So before we end this journey together, I want to leave you with something simple. Something powerful. Believe. Behave. Become. If you believe you can grow into your highest, most aligned self. If you behave like that person every day in small ways with courage and clarity. Then over time, you will become everything you once thought was just a dream. You're more powerful than you know. Have faith in yourself. I'm here rooting for you, yes, you stranger. I'm so grateful you stayed with me until the end. Thank you for sharing your time, your energy, and your attention. It means more than you know. I'm sending you love. Real love. And deep, true abundance for your heart, your life, and your future. Until next time. Stay fearless. Stay kind. And never forget who you're becoming.